Challenge your potential and the sky's the limit. Join me, Emily Ibbott, in a diary to empower. From a starting point of a love for dance, my life has evolved, but along the way, I've learned so much in how we develop, learn and grow from those around us to elevate us even further on. Be inspired and be open to learn, and no limit will ever exist. Come along with me on my own journey in personal development, but with guests who have empowered me and are still doing so in my own journey. Hello and welcome back, John.
It's been a long time.
So we had John on the pod and we have spoken a lot about sort of training and mindset. So we thought we'd delve a little bit deeper today into the nutrition side of things. And I think from what I've learned and from what people have asked me and questions on, I think actually it's just the education on sort of nutrition and why we eat the things we do a day and you know why sort of more new there are certain things that we need to hit and are sort of good for us sort of to move as well and to fuel, like food is fuel.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you've got obviously 3 macronutrients, so carbohydrates, proteins and fats. And I think people just get a bit caught up in diet trends and what to do, and like, do we need more of one and
or less of another?
Less of another, and like there are diets out there that are kind of carb free or fat free or low protein and sort of balanced across the board. And it's just, I guess, us chatting today about, you know, what you do need, why you need it, and you know how it helps you train and go from there, really.
And without going to like extremes, like I think a lot of people are like, oh, this person said this thing is great, and it's like, but you know, what about if you can have all of the things you enjoy and as well as
maybe
not all but like and knowing sort of when is good to how to balance it out more than anything else. I think people think about it really complex, or what is the word? Think about it like really complicated.
Yes,
but actually
try and complicate the situation.
Yes, that was what I was trying to say.
I know.
And it's not. It doesn't have to be so complicated.
This does remind me of a story of someone saving Easter eggs.
Stage preps don't count, guys.
Someone had been saving. I don't know how long you saved your Easter eggs for. How long was it?
I remember my mum saying to me, she was like, do you want one? I was like, yeah, I still want one. I can't have one now for a good few months. When did I start prep? Feb. When did I finish it? Oh my gosh, August, September.
What did you have your Easter egg in?
My oats.
Yeah, doing your oats. There we go.
My oats.
It probably sounds really weird, right? So
my oats, life, and I think it's. And you can still, I was like, I'm going to make this work, even if I break this Easter egg up into 50,000 pieces. But yeah, and I think you can still have, like, it's just having the balance and also understanding what each, like, macronutrient does more than anything else. And I know you've got all your sort of fun analogies with that. And just explaining, so how would you explain proteins, fats, carbs in the simplest way
so
for people to understand?
Skin, tissue and organs all require a certain amount of protein per day. There's a small amount of turnover used. So as long as you're getting a minimum amount for the body, which could be anywhere between 50 and 100 grams a day, you're covering all your bases. So it's kind of an insurance policy for your body. Then anything you do past that requires a little bit more protein. Carbohydrates, the brain requires sugar and the muscles require carbohydrates to contract efficiently. So we basically give carbohydrates based on the activity for the day. So if someone's super active and they're training loads, we give them a little bit more carbohydrates. If they're not doing that much, they don't need. So it's like me saying to...
Because your body doesn't actually... It's knowing that people are like, oh yeah, I like it. Yeah, you can, but you don't need you to physically function for the day that you're ahead, that is ahead of you. You don't necessarily
do you have a favourite car?
I like the American GT5 500.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So if we bought you a GT500 and what I wanted you to do for the day is park it on the drive, do you think it needs a full tank of petrol?
No.
Exactly. But if I needed you to take it around a racetrack,
yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the same way to think about your body.
That's a good way to say it. I've not heard that one of yours before.
I'm making
there we go, yeah.
So it's kind of like you're fueling what the need is for the day. And obviously, yes, people like carbohydrates. There's nothing wrong with them. But it's just trying to understand if you're chasing vanity or performance, that there's a set amount you need sort of like for the job at hand. And then fats, obviously great for hormones and cells. So they have their place as well. Good fats, bad fats, everything has its place. So these diets that restrict you of one of the macronutrients are fine if they're, let's say, based on competing. We bring fats down, we push carbohydrates, we keep protein at a set level. But we're doing that because we're after very, very small vanity changes.
And
right?
specific goals.
Yeah. And we have a calorie target that we're sticking to. And if we put too much of those macronutrients in, we obviously go above that calorie target. But for the average person, all we really, really want to give you some advice on, a little bit of protein, a little bit of carbohydrates, a little bit of good fats, and you're pretty much covered.
Yeah.
And we were saying off camera a minute ago, all three of us were talking, and we were just saying about literally like any diet is pretty good. So all your, like we mentioned, I think last time, like your Slimming Worlds and your Atkins and, if it fits your macros, they're all very, very good diets if you just stick to them consistently with some adherence.
Yeah.
There's not a bad thing. You know, I don't really think there's any truly bad diets.
No, and I think as well, I think the hard things with some of those diets is that they teach you that sort of food is good and bad, whereas actually everyone is aware of what's more nutritious to what is less nutritious.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, and it's understanding that, and that point blank, I think it's like, it all, like you say, it all has its place somewhere, you know, and I think even, again, this is a more extreme version, but peak week, so many people in my second peak week were so shocked at why I was allowed 5 guys 2 days out. But, you know, it had its place for the purpose of what John knew what he was doing. And understanding that sort of increasing those fats for that purpose, for what we wanted to achieve in that week as well. But
yeah, because, I mean, you store, obviously, glycogen in the muscles. So imagine you've got lots of little petrol tanks in all your little muscles, and they're all filled with petrol. We're calling it petrol, but we're talking about carbohydrates, glycogen. So they're stored. And then you have like intercellular triglycerides, which are little pockets of fats also stored. So as we're in a prep and as we're depleting Emily, we're kind of draining her of all of those good nutrients. We're draining her fats, draining her carbohydrates, just to get her into the position where her body is using her own stored fat as a primary energy source. So as we get closer into peaking, we want to replenish all those fats, and we want to replenish all that carbohydrate to bring everything to the surface and make her, you know, full and everything showing on stage. That's not what we want you to do out there. We don't want you.
Yeah, you know. And
I went to 5 guys after listening to John, and I did not look any better the next day. No.
Yeah, I know, and that was after 29 weeks of dieting.
Yes, exactly.
But and I think one thing it is so important to sort of highlight to so many people, and I know you probably get it as well, is actually understanding the purpose of carbohydrates and why we need it, and the different types, you know, of sugars. And at the end of the day, like I always say to people, you know, you can have like for like things.
Absolutely.
And people, I guess trying to explain the most simplistic way of those things, because so many people are like, people say to me, my family as well, they say, oh, how can you have that?
Yeah.
You know, oh, well, actually, because I'm having some protein as well within this meal, and it's not going to spike my blood sugar, you know, and it's understanding those things. I think it's really hard to sort of comprehend that. And people are like, oh, this is bad, but actually I'm going to have this. Well, in fact, if you had, I don't know, 50 bread rolls, but you're okaying the bread roll compared to having 15 cookies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not that, yes, there obviously is different ingredients into that, but it's people understanding sort of like the like for likes of carbohydrates.
I think for a while people were like, you know, brown rice is better than white rice, and they don't really understand the glycemic index and stuff like that. And that's a test done on carbohydrates in a single environment and how they affect blood sugar. You know, so white rice turns into glucose really fast, blood glucose, so it pushes insulin up, and they're like, oh, that sounded good, didn't it? That's my entrance. And it's kind of like they don't really realize that you don't ever eat brown rice on its own. You eat it with something else.
Yeah.
And protein retards the effect of insulin. So it kind of like, if you're eating that with let's say a carbohydrate source that breaks down into sugar a little quicker, that would push insulin up, but you put protein and you basically pair that with the meal, you've just changed that whole way it breaks down in the body. You then add fat to that, you slow down all the digestion rates. So it's kind of like there isn't really, other than, like you said, cookies and biscuits and stuff like that, there isn't really a bad type of carbohydrate. If we're being really basic across the board, you know. So
and I
oats,
think
bread,
the majority of
bagels.
people don't need to go into the complexities of it, and I think it can really it confuses people.
We do for vanity. So if I have her on a stage trying to look her absolute best, I need to be a little bit more anal with the foods that we choose, right? But that's fine because that's just vanity, right? So we just stick to
that purpose.
The foods that she's been using. We don't chuck anything extra in that she's not been using. We know that she can digest maybe 3 or 4 carbohydrates like rice, potatoes, your pasta or oats, whatever. We know that she works really well with those, so we're not going to change that. But for the average Joe, you've just got to kind of explain to yourself that nothing's truly off the cards. It's just, again, about us creating some kind of consistent pattern to the day. A little bit of protein.
So many people think so many people say to me, oh, bread's bad, but they have rabs.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? There's not... bread is bread, man. Like, you know, and okay, wholemeal. Okay, but why, like I always switch it around to people, you know, why do you think wholemeal is better? Yes, it's got a little bit more fiber in it because it's got seeds. Like, that's going to aid your digestion. But if you really hate it and you just want white bread, just have the white breads.
A tuna sandwich, trust me, inside your body, a tuna sandwich with white bread versus a tuna sandwich with brown bread isn't really going to do much difference.
Yeah.
You know, we are not talking to the athlete right now.
Yeah.
If we were talking to the athlete now, we would be more specific with, again, the foods and how they digest and the rates and stuff. But we're not. We're just talking in general. Just
to understand a little bit more, and it's having the education on that. And I think so many people say to me, oh, this is bad or this is bad. And I'm like, no, it's no different, really. Like, and I think that's the misconceptions, and I think that's come from diet culture and come from places like Slimming World and whatnot, and what's honed into us, and also what's advertised to us as well, because so many people are like, oh my God. And, you know, it's the same with, you'll know this one, and protein bars, you know, in the supermarket, like the average protein bar. Actually, you've probably got more protein in, like, they advertise, I don't know how to explain it, a cereal bar. They say, oh, it's Nature Valley protein. You've got there's more fats in that than there is protein.
And it's not a complete
and it's, you know, actually read, like, it's those labels and understanding it, because you're only you're reading the label, but you're not reading the label on the other side and actually understanding what the content in it. You know, if something's got higher fats than it has protein, but it's advertising that it's higher in protein, you know, okay, this probably isn't the best thing.
All the convenience foods, like your protein snacks and stuff like that, they're okay.
Not the most optimal.
No, if they might fill a gap for someone if they couldn't eat, but it wouldn't be my go-to every day on a diet. I'd just be saying to someone, try and get protein in twice a day. That's pretty much the easiest thing, like lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And then think about, even if we just use that analogy I spoke to you guys about the car, you know, if you're busy, you know, like how many carbohydrates you might need. Obviously you're going to have carbohydrates at each sitting, but it's the amount. You know, you might have a little bit of oats with some fruit in the morning, whatever it might be, or a cereal and fruit, and then at the afternoon you might have some chicken and rice or chicken. It doesn't have to be so boring, but I'm just saying it might be chicken and a jacket potato. You know, something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the typical.
It doesn't have to be chicken and rice and broccoli. That I don't know where this has come from, but and then in the evening meal, a nice meal with the family, or, you know, like something a bit more red meat, something a bit more fatty, you know, because you want something, you know, a little bit more slow digesting, and then another small amount of carbs. But if you know you're going to the gym that day, and you know that maybe you've been doing 10,000 steps or something, you know, then you think to yourself, okay, like my car's been out and it's done a few laps, it needs a little bit more energy. The problem you have is when people park the car on the drive, i.e. their body, and just carry on filling it up with a fuel tank every day. So it's just, and obviously that overflow becomes a surplus, and obviously the body's going to store some of that. So you're going to gain weight at a very slow rate, but it's going to happen. And then 6 months down the line, you're like, I kind of don't eat too much, but you do, you know. And the worst thing, and I hate to say it. And I promise Emily I won't go into too many crazy things.
we can do something.
It's just the fact that if you're gaining weight, you are eating more than you need to, than the body is expending. So 9 times out of 10, and I'll say 9 times because there might be some kind of hormonal issue or something like that we're not picking up on. So 9 times out of 10, you know, you don't realize that some people might actually need to eat a little less calories than what everyone's been told. You know, here's your daily amount of calories.
It's so individual. It's so individual.
You know, someone might need to eat, and it might shock you, 1,000 calories to get the benefit they need to, because their activity is so low. Someone else might
their
need to eat.
composition
Yeah,
is,
the composition, the body fat's higher than muscle.
Yeah.
You know, someone else might need to eat 2,500 calories that, you know, that is their best friend, that is sort of slightly visually different, but, you know, she thinks, well, Kathy's eating that. Why the fuck can't I eat that?
Yeah.
You know? So it's kind of just trying to understand that if the weight's not coming down, then don't worry, it will. But as long as you're in that deficit and you're doing, like we mentioned in the last podcast, some good training with some progressions. But if the weight's going up, it means at some point in that day,
there is something that's not necessarily
you are exceeding what you need. Not you're eating too much, like because you're naughty and you know, but you're just, the body doesn't need as much as you're giving it. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah. And also, I guess, obviously we've spoken a lot about carbohydrates, but I think protein is one of the most.
Oh yeah.
I think I probably get the most questions on protein and how we like, because I don't know about you, but I know most people, right? Okay, talking about the average here. Okay, we'll have cereal for breakfast. Again, cereal is fine. We can have the cereal. We'll have, a sandwich at lunch with maybe, I don't know, one tiny bit of chicken in it. Okay, and then we'll have dinner. And obviously, the sandwiches, obviously, we're focusing on a lot of carbs, but we've got hardly any protein in breakfast. No protein, barely protein in lunch. And then, dinner, they only have that one tiny sauce. Whereas actually, if you just like focused a little bit of protein on breakfast and lunch, we upped the volume a little bit. Okay, well, now you've got 3 good portions of protein, and it's having that. And I think people just underestimate just by increasing and just focusing on that little bit per meal. Okay, and then if you add a snack in there, okay, well, then you've got 4 portions and you're already beating your 1 that you originally had in the first place.
You got to think about it. Like I always say, protein, skin tissue and organs. How many people like to have nice skin, especially you ladies out there? You know, and so even if you went as, I know we've spoken prior to this that we weren't going to give people numbers and macros and stuff to work out because it is so specific.
And it's really complex.
It changes.
It's complex for the individual. There is no one size fits all with it.
Ems might need X amount right now, but in 4 weeks down the line, as her physique changes, it will need to be adjusted. But if we even just said, like, you want to get on the worst case, like 1 gram of protein per kilogram. Now, most people do it per pound, but we're not talking about the athlete here or the performance person. If you went as low as 1 gram per kilogram, so say someone weighs 60 kilograms, she's getting 60 grams of protein. Now, that is the bare minimum. That's the bare minimum. It needs to be above that. But if you're not even getting the bare minimum, you're not putting yourself in a great position, especially long-term health reasons and stuff like that.
Like, we need that.
Muscle wastage. You know.
When you talk about protein in breakfast, what does that look like?
So my go-to is protein oats. You know, and with protein products, I used to hate it all. I remember when you gave me protein and I was like, I don't like anything. I don't like any protein powder. It's grim. I don't like any of the protein bars. Now what you can, I mean, given that wasn't that long ago, but even so in the past 2 years, what you can get, the protein mousses, it took me ages to find what brand I liked, what was good, but they're not all grim. Like 100%, they're not all horrible, and it's just finding what works for you. But even like having sort of a lot of my clients have like the protein yogurts or Greek yogurt and have a bit of honey in it. And that's also obviously good like food sources, but I always have protein powder in my oats. Even if you had a shake on the side of cereal, if you want your cereal, like, enjoy it, like, or your toast or whatever it may be. And it's sort of supplementing that on the side or having something with it, or eggs.
Breakfast is a tough one.
Yeah.
Breakfast is the one that everyone struggles with. And it's why I normally say to lifestyle clients, focus on protein in the other 2 meals of the day if breakfast is stressing you out. But she's right, like eggs, you've got turkey bacon, you know, bits and pieces. But not everyone wants to wake up and eat turkey sausages, chicken sausages, turkey bacon, stuff like that. And no one wants to eat mince in the mornings and chicken in the mornings. So it normally, like Em said, we're using she's talking about a protein supplement. So she's talking about like a powder or something like that, which is good if you can't get to a real food.
Yeah. We want most of our source to be from food.
Yes, correct. Absolutely. That's why I don't want you to think listening to that she just has protein bars and yogurts all day.
Definitely I don't. That's in like 2 meals.
So
out of 7.
I'll do egg whites in the morning, but I just love egg whites because I'm weird. But to me, if I don't have my egg whites in the
Sorry,
morning,
just to pause this, John will just drink a carton of egg whites just off the
Pasteurised
bat.
egg whites,
Just
Like raw.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh my god, that takes a lot.
15 of them.
But John loves it.
But I love it. I don't know why, because it's so. For me, I know, and some of you out there understand.
You're really enjoying this.
I'm drinking muscle. That's it in my mind. I'm drinking something that is feeding all the things inside that is good, because I know that this is better than me using an alternative or a supplement. So for me, I'm like, okay, I'll have a protein shake, maybe after training or something like that, but breakfast is that tough one, because it might be cereal, it might be oats, it might be a bagel, it might be bread, it could be anything like that. And then having protein foods alongside that is a little awkward. So it's kind of normally the meal that your average person would probably just do carbohydrates and maybe some good fats. And then lunch, definitely protein. Dinner, definitely protein. And then it could even be like a little shake after a training session.
Yeah.
So you still have 3 mini dumps of protein throughout the day.
Yeah.
So the body's still getting what it needs. The body at any point can start hunting around for amino acids, which is what makes protein up. And if you've been weight training or doing something, the body wants to go into that repair process. Let's say Emily trained chest Sunday. We'll say legs.
Okay, we'll do legs.
We'll say legs on Sunday. Now, as soon as she's finished that session, her body doesn't go into like, I'm going to build back all that damage and I'm going to recover. It can do it at any point over the next 48, 72, whatever hours. And it could be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's going to look at for all those protein substrates. It's going to look for those amino acids and go, right, I'm going to start that repair process. If they're not available, then nothing can actually happen.
Yeah.
All the body can do is basically work with what it's got to kind of build itself back to exactly how it was, because it has no new nutrients to build on.
So you gotta eat.
So I explain to people, and people seem to like this analogy, I say, when you build a house, imagine you've got your house here and it's nice, it looks good, but you want to put an extension on it. So you need all these available materials to build the extension. These are all these available nutrients to build this new physique of yours.
Yeah.
And if those materials aren't there to build the house, you can't do jack shit. So you might...
there will be no house.
Yeah. You might 4 guys all turn up to work and they're like, let's do this. Let's put this house together.
So ready.
And they're like, where's all the wood? And you're like, didn't eat it. Obviously protein, wood, But if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it is quite stressful when people are like, then it's like leading on from the conversation we had about training.
Yeah.
Training then is first. But remember, we said in that podcast how important nutrition is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how good that training session
is.
is.
It's not going to be, if you can't optimize your training as well, like, what was that training doing if what you're doing outside of it isn't
Absolutely.
but being inputted?
Yeah. If you have an amazing workout like you would, if she's not doing the nutrition, well, so what?
It doesn't mean anything.
So what? Like, it was just a fucking hard session. Sorry, it's just a hard session, and it's kind of like trying to make people. Now, obviously, that part of it is going into that more performance side of things, but it's still the same for every sort of person that wants to train or wants to get some kind of vanity shift from it. Want to have that
and
visual
to make
change.
the most out of their training,
Hell yeah.
even if it isn't to the extremes that we necessarily work towards. I think you use it. You want to, and that's why like your food is your fuel for your workouts. It's your fuel for your day. Like you need it, and I think a lot of people undereat to what?
Oh yeah.
The amount of times, and I've had clients where I've almost doubled their food intake, and they're like, oh, this is what I should be doing, or this is the amount that I should really be fueling, and I've got energy in my workouts, and that's all abnormal because they've been so used to not.
Yeah,
sort of
all the
fueling
mainstream diets, the ones that we're saying that weren't that bad, but it just gets people used to very low calorie diets, and I think the biggest problem is you end up you do feel quite fatigued on those diets, and then I think that in conjunction with us saying sometimes you lose a bit of motivation, if you've got 2 things kind of pulling you down a little, you're definitely gonna quit, aren't you? Because you're like, sod this diet, and the training.
And you feel rubbish, and you feel lethargic because you've not got that same. Okay, well, if we switch this and this and this around, okay, now you feel really good for those workouts, and you can chase for that goal that you originally wanted, and that you feel like you can't reach, but actually you can just by like manipulating these tiny things around nutrition. And I think as well, if we're sort of looking at it in terms of training, you know, a lot of people get confused with the pre and the post workouts, and I think there's this protein window, like, you know,
What window?
What
window?
complete nonsense, you know.
I can tell you how they made that window up as well.
Oh, let's go.
That was made up by a supplement company a long, long time ago. No, I won't mention the company's name. So they were looking at a way to enforce the sales of supplementation and how to make protein sexy and popular. And they came out with this post-training optimal window, which at the time everyone believed because there was not enough information to argue against it. So it became like this, I think it was, is it an hour? I don't know. Is it an hour after training or something? An hour after training, you have to get all the nutrients in to replenish from the workout. Now, the only bit of truth to that is as you're training, imagine, we'll go for another analogy.
Let's go for it.
Imagine you're digging a ditch, all right? So, and the longer you train, the deeper you dig the ditch. If that training session is 90 minutes, an hour plus, an hour to 90 minutes, maybe slightly longer than that, you end up digging quite a big ditch for recovery, all right? So if we had some kind of intra-workout around that workout, which would be...
How do you explain intra?
So something that you're taking while you're training. Okay, so as we've started training, we've started working our muscles, we've started doing exercise, we're starting to burn through that energy that we spoke about earlier, the carbohydrates. And then if we can, for a little bit of a performance, we can give the body a little bit of carbohydrates in a carbohydrate powder, like a Lucozade would be a drink that people would know. We can get something slightly better than that. I can talk why it would be why you wouldn't want to use a Lucozade, but we can go there. We'd use some carbohydrate powder and we'd put that into a drink with some amino acids, which is what protein's made out of. So, and then that we would sip through the workout. We're not trying to neck it for any particular reason, but what we're doing is we're giving ourselves an insurance policy in the training session. That's it. So instead of digging this huge ditch down, we end up just digging a small little hole because we're literally giving the body what it needs to recover. And it's constant. So as they're training, instead of just the blood moving around the body, the blood and all of these nutrients, so the blood becomes enriched with nutrients. It's not empty blood, it's kind of, traveling all that blood. Yeah. So that's the intra workout can be quite important. Now that I wouldn't get the average Joe doing, or someone that's just training for an hour or stuff like that, because 9 times out of 10, I'm hoping they've eaten before, a couple of hours before, and they're going to be eating after. So there is no need to do...
And it's understanding that fuel for the, for your entire day. And it's, how can you break that down rather than sort of being like, oh my God, I must have it within
the body does not go into any repair or recovery process 1 hour after training. If it did, we would be massive because every hour after training, I'm eating everything and I'm massive by the end of it. We don't know when that happens. They can't specifically say when the body's going to look for those amino acids, when's it going to go into that repair process. We know there's inflammation there and stuff like that, and that's a good thing. But it's kind of like, it could be any time. So the supplement companies pushed that out for quite a long time. And it just stayed for years and years and years. Intra-workout is completely different because that's trying to improve the workout itself. So that's not kind of feeding into anything. And then pre-workout would be you just eating a normal meal a couple of hours before you train, depending on how good your digestion rates are.
Because we don't want, we want that little bit of fuel because we're moving. We're moving the car, so we need to fuel the car.
Taking it for a drive, which reminds me, I need fuel.
You need to get fuel. And I think does
that make sense?
Yes,
it does.
Yeah.
And I think it's those things which are really complex. Like people are like, do I need protein powder? Well, how's your,
Are you eating protein?
Are you eating protein? What's your current consumption? Let's look at that. Okay, if you're really struggling and it's really tough, okay, this is when, maybe we can add those things in to sort of help and to sort of increase that because it's going to better sort of your nutrition in that space. Yeah. And I think there's so many, especially with like pre-workouts, and there's all sorts, and it can go to so many extremes. And I think so many people are like, do I need this? Do I need that? Do I need this? What vitamins do I do? Yes, okay, there are some, vitamins that we can sort of look at that I think would be good for everyone, especially, and depending on where we live in the world. Yep. There's different needs, especially not getting any sun here.
She's about to sell you her brand new vitamin D product made by Emily.
Yeah, imagine. But and I think so many people come to them and they almost panic. Oh, what should I be taking? Oh, this person's doing this. Okay, no, let's reel it back and keep it simple and understand. Do you actually know what it does?
Yeah.
Okay, then go from there. I remember when you sent me sort of everything that I needed to sort of have, and I was like asking a billion questions. And I think like if you're not sure, ask. And, you know, and if someone doesn't know, then they get them to ask, you know, find out, because then you've got the confidence of knowing why you're doing something. And it's the same, like, I guess, you know, we spoke about training in the previous podcast. It's like, okay, well, why are you doing that X amount of times a week? Well, but if you can give an answer to that, like, understand what you're doing more than anything else. And I think people just to be like, oh yeah, I'll just do this because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, and if you are working with someone that can't answer your questions, message me. Be cautious.
Yes,
because I mean, Emily can ping me hundreds of questions like she does, which is fantastic, and I'm happy to answer everything. And if there's something that I can't answer, I'll tell her I can't answer it because maybe it's something that is fairly new, or you know, that they haven't got enough data on it, or I'll go work out what the question is that she's asked. But it's kind of like the nutrition is really, really basic. Honestly, it really is. A little bit of carbs, good amounts of a couple of good protein meals, a little bit of good fats,
and some veggies.
Obviously, fiber and veg and stuff like that. Yeah.
And I just want to highlight, I think so many people like. I mean, as a coach, like, I'm not like, oh my God, just eat your veg. Like, people don't bang on about eating veg for the sake of it. The purpose of veg for your digestion. And if you're not focusing on your digestion, like, you need to. Like, it's such a major thing. And I know so many people like, you know, I think I can talk about it, but so many people say to me, oh, I only go like once a week. What? Like, you know, okay, what? Let's look at that a little bit. You know, we need to, you need, like, and that's why we don't just do it for the sake of it. I'm just going to moan at you to hammer your veg. Like, you know, if you look at your sort of most meals, okay, got a little bit of carbohydrates, got your bit of protein, got some good fat somewhere in there. Okay, and some veg is there somewhere. Like, obviously, like, you know, fruits, like add some fruit to your breakfast, you know, all of those things. And no, the carbohydrates in fruits is not bad. Like, and so many people say that, but actually, you know, we need fiber.
Yeah.
And that's the only purpose of it, is for digestion.
And obviously, veggies are carbohydrates. So, you know, when you're going to create your evening meal, it might be some sort of mixed greens and stuff like whatever it might be, whatever you want. And then, you know, you might have that with some potato or whatever, you know, and it's for me, it's kind of very simple. So it's kind of like, we're not saying just because we haven't mentioned greens until this very second.
Yeah.
Or fruit to this very second. To us, they're encased in the term carbohydrates because that's what they are. So we're saying have good carbohydrates. So breakfast could be fruit and oats and whatever, you know, get fiber from your oats. And then the next meal might have some protein, some carbs, and with veg and all sorts of things in it. The last meal might just be veg, meat, and some good fats. Yeah. Why not even the carbohydrates might be just the veg, you know. It's not an issue. And it's tough because I think people think they need to get really clever, or they see these diets.
It doesn't need to be.
You know, it's either no carbs or no fat
yeah.
or X.
And I think people have, it's the bad association with fats, thinking, oh, if I have fats.
So it's a bad word, isn't it? Fat.
Yeah.
You know,
like, no one likes it.
I hear that quite a bit when people talk about fats and stuff. Oh, that's not good for you. This is not good for you. Yeah. That's because they're just following trends. And a lot of people, like when they're doing like Weight Watchers or something like that, maybe. I tried it for so many weeks, didn't kind of work. It's like you're saying, consistent. Keep it consistent. That's you know. Yeah. I hate vegetables, but if I put in a stir fry where it's all kind of chopped up, like hate spinach, can't stand spinach. I kind of like heave on what's those balls with the veg things, sprouts. Yeah. But if it's all chopped down in a stir fry, it's easy.
And it's making it so you enjoy. Like I've even had it before where I've got a load of veg, put a stock cube in it, blended it up and made it into a pasta sauce. Like, you know, all of those things. There are so many ways that you can do it. And you know, it's, if you really don't like to, you know, we're not gonna, like, there are other ways. I don't eat. Gonna highlight this.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say. I'm gonna step in there before you do. I don't eat veg at all, but I would take a green supplement. So I will still get what I need from them. I will get the vitamins and minerals I need from those foods. And I'll take that as a supplement. Yeah, it's not ideal, but ever since I was young, obviously the people that were helping me from the age of like 8, 10, 11, 12, doing all my martial arts and bits and pieces, weren't really talking about vegetables. They were trying to get me to eat carbs, and protein wasn't really the big thing. It was just carbs for energy. So all my meals became a little bit of chicken, loads of potato,
just carbs,
sausages, and potato. My mum would be like, "Oh, I've got new 4 sausages." I was like, "I want 6 sausages."
I wouldn't. Yeah, I want all the
so it's kind of that thing. So they nowadays. Only I'd say in the last 5 years it's become efficient enough to get it in tablet form or powdered form. Like you have your athletic greens,
and it's good greens. Now. Like what you can
very,
get is really good.
So if people if you don't like veg, it's not a problem.
Yeah,
drink it, take it in a capsule form.
But we do need it.
But you do need it. So.
Yeah. And and I think people, make it to you. Some people, rice is really boring. Like, I can't really have pasta. Why can't you have pasta if you want pasta? Like,
In your seasonings, you can always all sorts of things to make things
obviously,
nice.
Down to the individual. Certain things may flare up certain digestive problems and all sorts like that. And okay, so then that individual, you might need to sort of be a bit more wary of certain things that they eat, and again, but you can, it's sort of making it to you and just sort of just having, like you say, and keeping it simple. Each meal, sort of, okay, have I got my protein? Have I got my carbs? Have I got some good fats? Yes, we need to have a balance of them all, and we don't want, too many of one thing to highlight, because obviously then, you're working into that surplus as well, and it's sort of focusing on that to each meal, and it doesn't need to, you don't need to win and be really complicated and have this fancy meal and all those things as well.
So if someone was going to start a diet,
you're going to put me on the spot.
No, right. As in, like, what do you think you could what would be like a good bit of advice if they, if let's say we're talking about nutrition right now and we're saying, okay, tomorrow someone's listening, tomorrow I'm going to try and take on board what these guys have said. What would be the advice you would give them?
My biggest advice, I guess, to someone just wanting to improve on something that they're, already or currently doing, is to just see how they can look at what they're having per meal and be mindful of the choices to include everything we need to fuel.
Yeah.
And, whether we are training, or look at our training as well on the outside of that to understand, okay, how should I really be fueling at the moment? And I think it's, I guess that would be my biggest advice. And, sort of looking at that protein and the carbohydrates that we have. And I think to be honest, if you're someone who's like, I'm really, and and I always say to one of my people, every single one of my clients in their consultation, I said, what do you feel like's your biggest downfall?
Yeah.
Because then I know what I can help with. And most of the time it's like people say, I'm just eating a little bit too much of this and too much of that, or all the things that we all love. But, it's just being mindful to not have all those things all the time. And for some clients, it's like they have 3 takeaways a week, but actually, okay, could you make that one at the weekend and you're already winning? Could you make that, or if it's alcohol consumption, okay, I'm having a little bit throughout the week. Could we make it just twice a week? Or, and already reducing those things, it's the little improvements. And, we can still sort of be human. Like we like nice things. I mean, you were saying you love your egg whites.
I do, really do.
But,
if there's any egg white companies that want to sponsor me.
and we were saying off camera as well, like, I'm a massive foodie and people are always shocked. Like, I really love going out for dinner and going for meals and things. And I know that's there. Like I'll go at the weekend and I'll enjoy that. And I think that was my own biggest mindset shift. And I think I've said this on a previous podcast, is it's always going to be there. It's not going anywhere. Your cookie that you want in your cupboard today will still be there at the weekend. And okay, actually, I'm just going to have one with a cup of tea at the weekend. Cool.
How more rewarding is that, though? After like a really good week of something.
And I always say to people, the serotonin boost that you have if you have 2 squares of chocolate to if you had a whole bar of chocolate is the same. Like we don't get no bigger burst of energy if we have the whole entire bar. Like, we still, if it makes it easier to improve, or you feel to improve your diet, to just have just that little square on your oats of your Easter egg, okay, like you're enjoying that and like use that, and it's nothing's going anywhere.
we know it's hard with some people that, let's say, like chocolate, and they have that one piece of chocolate and then they have another and have another. Remember, that's not always your fault. You know, there's a trigger there. There's a trigger there that the body suddenly wants more sugar, and it starts, you know, and you have a little battle in your head, and you think, oh, that was quite nice. I want that taste again.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the bar, you feel horrendous. You feel like you've let yourself down. You feel really disappointed. Yeah. And then the next day, because you feel so disappointed of yesterday, you do it again. So you get stuck in this vicious cycle, and we've all been there. Yep. We've all been there. You know, I've had to pull the reins on many a people. You know, and it's hard, but it's just trying to understand that, hey, that's normal. That's completely normal. Yeah. You're not crazy. You're not the one that's failed.
No.
The best bit of advice is, if that something like that happens, just get straight back on plan the next day.
As normal.
And you
don't
haven't
compensate
failed.
on anything.
That's it.
You know, and I think so many people think, oh, I need to cut this because No. Just
follow the plan.
You know, you don't need to increase your step count. Just, you know, do it as normal, because that one day won't do anything.
No, it will if it's 3 or 4.
Yes.
I don't quote me on this, but I think it's in Singapore. Their families teach their kids and themselves not to eat until they're full.
Yeah,
eat kind of like half full. Stop.
That's right, yeah.
Another I thought of it as well. If you're eating till you feel bloated, look at what you're eating and kind of slightly cut back.
Yeah.
So you kind of make your body kind of feel. Eventually that'll disappear.
Yeah.
You know,
always leave the dinner table slightly hungry. Not hungry is maybe the wrong word, but not fully satiated.
Yeah, it normally takes a lot. Well,
for you to feel full, because
I mean, post prep is a whole nother conversation, but it's, you know, I think we love food, like, as humans.
Who doesn't?
Like, you know, when are we, you know, just, it's going to take a lot for everyone to be like, to them feel completely, you know, it takes a Christmas day normally for them people to be like, oh, I've eaten too much. So, you know, to do that on the everyday is going to be quite a lot on the body. Like, we don't need to go to those extremes.
I don't think it doesn't help having all these food adverts and posters.
No.
So that was another one that came up on the blue zone I was talking about earlier. So one country has none of those adverts, doesn't have McDonald's at all, so they are keeping to their plan. Now another country is now just start having like these McDonald's and Burger Kings kind of put up, so their kids, even the adults, are still sticking to their normal eating kind of thing they do. Routines. The kids are now saying, don't want to eat that anymore. I want a burger. I want this. And they're now seeing their kids kind of like being obese and
change. Well, they say, don't they, like you need to, once you've seen something 3 times, like an advertisement or an advert, it sort of kind of sinks itself in.
You talk yourself into it.
You know, but I think that's just how our brains work. You know, we're just shown things over time. We see it more and more, and you kind of think, I wonder what that little tastes like. You know, and it's just normal. But you are right. Like, in an ideal scenario, you know, you kind of want to keep yourself away from stuff like that. I mean, it's not nutrition based, but we in our little household, we do that with like the news and stuff. The more I don't want to know what's going on, because then I'll just be like, fucking hell, this is just all shit.
Crazy.
So I'd rather not know. And because I don't know, it doesn't affect me. I'm not like people will talk about, I'm like, I don't really know. But I don't need to know. I don't choose to know. But it's like that with nutrition. You've got 2 people in the house. One person likes ordering pizzas and burgers and stuff. And sooner or later, that other person's going to fall in line.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard, right? And on the other thing, you kind of, it doesn't happen the other way around. You have one person that follows a really strict diet and they're harder thing. And it'd be lovely if that knocked the other person in the family to follow suit, but normally it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then normally it causes a bit of a rift, because that one person that's really trying, it starts to find it a lot harder seeing the other person enjoying themselves. But we're not saying you can't enjoy yourself. We're just saying that,
we are human.
Yes.
Like, as well. Yeah.
We do need a little bit of good things every now and then. But if you're doing like it's 50% of the good stuff, hey, go for it, enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've taken a teacher on recently, and he has horrendous days every single day. And he's got a little weird sort of rundown gym in the school, and he was giving me these things. And I said, right, okay. So we started trying to change his nutrition, and I realized quite soon that maybe not the ideal thing to do. So what I've done is, we've now got a structure in place where he does 4 days out of his 7, he follows the plan, and the other days are his. Now, initially, kind of, he had a bit more freedom on those other days. Now, as he's starting to see some results and he's doing quite well, he's being better on his days. And he's now said to me, can I do 5 days now on the plan and then just the 2 days at the weekend? I'm like, yeah. And it will slowly change, because I'm just trying to create a structure that suits his needs.
Yeah.
You know,
And it can always improve.
yeah, of course it can.
Like, you know, and like you say, it's like following that, you know, and we're human. It takes a while to retrain the brain as well, especially when, you know, if you've got a habit that's been going on for years, you know, it's not going to just suddenly snap. It's going to take us time to actually understand the benefit that it has on our bodies as well.
If you want to change, and you're out there listening to this, and you have a weight loss journey or a performance journey or something like that, you have, just like we said in the last one, all the tools. And again, it's about being uncomfortable. It's about working a little hard, finding something a little difficult, and following a not a meal structure, but following a way of eating or a lifestyle sort of thing. It's a little more difficult because it does put you an odd one out on the social events, but you make the good choices and then enjoy that social event, you know. But it's like anyone out there has the ability to change their physique, whether it be weight loss, performance, muscle, but you just need to just put a little bit of work in, and that's all it is. It's not, we're not saying you have to do X, Y, Z every single day. You don't eat this, you know, chicken and broccoli, what you were saying earlier. You know, it's just, you can have all these other good foods, but you're just controlled, you know. I think that's just a bit where people just get confused, really. And you know,
and I think people think you need to cut it out entirely, and you don't. And there may be times that for the goal that you're specifically working towards, we might need to be a bit more mindful than, you know, if we weren't working to such specific goals that you wanted to achieve. Equally, like, you know, and you can have those goals that we can be a little bit more relaxed, or there can be like a little bit more flexibility in things. Equally, if you want to push for a goal, we might need to be more mindful and deal with it. Absolutely.
I don't know. No, I think that's fine. And I think if, you know, just try and find something that you've heard and just sort of lock it in. Like, even if we use the analogy, we spoke about cars, just because we were talking about cars, like, just think to yourself, all right, am I really busy? But don't forget, obviously, using your brain still requires sugar, so that's still doing some work. So if you've got a very sort of like sort of hands-on job that you mentally challenging, you're still going to require some energy. So it's kind of, think to yourself, my next 2 days over the weekend, I'm not really doing too much. Think about it. Your car's on the drive. You don't need to give it shitloads of fuel, you know. So, and if the day you want a really nice meal with your wife, make sure that's maybe your busiest Saturday, when you've gone out, done a lot of walking, or you've gone and done some swimming with the kids or something. Okay, cool, good. There's a requirement there, you know. You've just made it fit. You've made it work. And I think it's, you know, that it's just being just a bit more aware, not being crazy or like
and keeping it simple. What am I doing? What do I need to adhere to for this day? And I think that sums things up pretty well. And you know, I think people forget, like, you know, we're not like superhuman. Like, you know, we have what's your favorite thing other than egg whites? John's is crisps.
So my cheat meal will be shock horror, egg whites and a bag of crisps, but that's only because, again, I might not want to have a burger and chips or whatever it might be. What's the enjoyment for me? I love having something that takes me time. So if I can put a big family bag of crisps in a bowl, and I've been flawless for the week, and I've got my egg whites, so I know I'm getting my protein in. No one needs to do the egg whites part. That's just me, you know. And I sit there and we'll put a movie on, and I've got something that I can enjoy over that period. And for me, it's like a really nice little reward. If the wife wants to go out and have dinner, fine, but I want my crisps. So it's that's
you know, I love cookies. That is my weakness. Cookie box.
Beyond cookies.
But, you know, and I think, you know, and even I, like, sort of, I haven't even been, and I will talk about post-show in a later podcast, but I haven't even been crazy. But even yet, oh my gosh, we'll be like 10 weeks down the line this week. Even I, like, you know, I had a bit more flexibility. It wasn't quite working for my body. And I have to pull it back. I can still enjoy those things. You know, I'm having a nice meal off with my friends at the weekend, and in my birthday's in a couple of weeks. You know, those times can still, but it's, you know, actually I've just got to bite the bullet, and and that's what I've got to stick to. But yeah, we all have things that we enjoy, and you can have them, but it's just in moderation.
Behind closed doors, no one's perfect.
No, absolutely.
No, I don't think there is, even if they say or they act on social media or, you know, trust me, we help most of them. So but any questions you think of, or I think we're good, or
no, good, yeah.
Okay,
and
perfect.
obviously if I'm planning to do more podcasts with John. So incoming, if you have any questions, we're going to do a Q&A podcast in a few weeks.
Throw us some good ones.
Yeah. So
not anything that's not related to the topics.
Yeah.
If someone asks me about GT 500 cars now, muscle cars, I'm going to be like, Jesus, I don't know. What exhaust does the...
Yeah. So all in relation, but it can be as nerdy or as simple. There is no good or bad question. So yeah, keep them coming.
The only one thing I will say, because we haven't touched base on it, but we can later.
Okay.
Is obviously nutrition does tie over into hormones like we were talking about.
Yes.
And for all of you guys out there and girls, that does help with the drive in external hobbies. So,
it all comes into it.
Nutrition can improve everything. So, just put in there. Take note. Yeah. For a sole podcast that we're going to be releasing after hours.
Yeah. So just, be aware. But all questions are welcome. So Stay tuned for more. A big thank you for joining me on my channel and tuning in. Find me on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon and YouTube at Diary to Empower. Follow me on Instagram, m_power.fitness and TikTok, m.ibert. See you on the next episode.